Hi, welcome to WGSN-DB, Going Solo. This is the Senior Citizens Forum being presented by Benefits for You Too Insurance Services, where they specialize in Medicare supplemental plans, Medicare Advantage plans, and Medicare prescription drug plans. And today, I'm Janice Wood, of course, your host. And my guest today here is Danny Chen, who I've known, I guess about 8 or 9 years.
Yes, going on 10.
Going back. And Danny is an immigration lawyer, and he has an interesting background. He was born in Taiwan.
Yes, that's right.
And he's immigrated to Vancouver, Washington when he was a child. Is that
Vancouver, Canada?
Canada, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I know better. And I happen to really like Vancouver, Canada. Nothing wrong with Vancouver, Washington, for anybody that's watching. But
yeah,
it's great. And I know he flies back and forth. I've heard him talk about it. But he lives here in the United States, and he is a very well-known immigration lawyer.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Janice.
And not only does he go back and forth to Vancouver, Canada, he's all over the world. I never know where he's at.
Well, right now I am here with you.
Right now you're here with me, which is great. But there are times, one time I said, I'm going to Washington, D.C. Of course, I was there as a tourist, and he was there on business. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Different type of a trip, but.
Yeah. Well, we go wherever work requires us to go.
Right. So, but a little bit more interesting, Danny has, he has offices in Irvine, Newport.
That's correct.
Beach, California, in Taipei, in Phoenix.
Yes, Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix, Arizona.
And Detroit.
And Detroit, interesting,
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
So you have staff in all of those places?
Yes, we do. Yeah. The reason why we have staff at various places is because we service a lot of different clusters of clients. So in Phoenix, we have a lot of semiconductor clients who are going in there because of how the state is building up that business. And in Detroit, because we have a lot of scholars who are studying there, we also have a lot of clients in the automotive industry. So we also have a little hub over there just to follow the local times and to make sure that we're able to service them.
Okay. But for here on the Senior Citizens Forum today, we're going to talk about why people that are a non-working age, older non-working age, because working age is 18 to 64?
Yep.
Okay. But if you're above the age of 65, why would you want to immigrate to the United States?
Ah, that's a great question. And now, growing up in Canada, I've always heard of this term snowbirds.
Okay, I know that term.
Yes. And I'm sure a lot of people in our audience will know what that means. But, people from various places where it may get cold or the weather may not be as pleasant during some times of the year may choose to come to the U.S., be it places like Florida or Palm Springs, to enjoy the really warm and really sunny, golf all winter long type of area. So we encounter a lot of snowbirds who are of, let's say, Canadian nationality or someone from Europe who's looking to just come here and enjoy all that the U.S. has to offer. Right. But usually when they come as visitors because they're only staying here short term, right? It may just be the winter time for a few months, in which case, if you're a UK or a European or a Canadian national, you're free to do that, no problem.
Okay, Ken, I know I have family that lives in Naples, Florida, which is a snowbird area, okay? And I know that they have homes, people who live in Europe or even from South America come into Naples, Florida, which is not a snowbird if you're from that area. But the population increases and then decreases.
Yes, definitely. So these are folks who will come as visitors, and that's completely fine. The U.S. immigration system allows visitors to come up to 6 months in the aggregate each year. So they may come on one trip for 6 months, or they can break up their trip. Maybe they may want to, in the summertime, do something else, maybe go to San Francisco, wherever, in the wintertime, spending it over at the warmer places. But in the aggregate, as long as you do not exceed 6 months, then as a visitor, you're fine. Now the question then becomes, if today they want to stay longer, if they want to make it a more permanent place here in the U.S., then what do we do, right? Because visitors are not supposed to live in the U.S. And by living in the U.S., the law has a very simple definition. If you spend more than half of the year in the U.S., then you're deemed to be living in the U.S. Less than 6 months, then you're a visitor, right? So there are some options that we can talk about today, especially for people who are nearing the retirement age or people who are not looking to work at all. Yes. First and foremost, if today the person is looking to come to the U.S. And make it more of a permanent move, many of our clients use something called the E2, ABCDE, E for Eric, the E2 visa. What this involves is they may purchase a small business. It could be an absentee run type of business, say a franchise or something with staff in place. And through that business, they could enjoy living in the U.S. Their spouse may choose to work if they want to. Children under the age of 21 could attend public school. So there's a variety of different benefits to this program. And this is how many of these small to medium-sized businesses in the U.S. are being used legally and for the benefit of U.S. economy as well, for these foreigners to be able to stay.
Okay, so once, you come here and you work, and now all of a sudden you've left your family from wherever country, okay, and you now want to come and be with your children, okay? And I don't want to come to work in the United States, but I want to come be with my family.
Ah, yes. So if somebody's child is already in the U.S. and is already an adult, and let's also say that the child is now already a U.S. citizen, by ways of through employment or through marrying, whatever reason, however they did it. When the child is already a U.S. citizen, as soon as the child turns 21, the child will have the legal ability to petition for the parents to come and live. Yes, and that is a very straightforward process. The entire processing, is as much as we knock immigration on their efficiency,
right?
That process will only take about a year and a half. And then the parents are able to legally live in the U.S. as green card holders.
Okay, because one of the things that I found that was very interesting in doing my research, okay, is that from 1990, between 1990 and 2050, there's going to be 20 million, what they call elderly. Okay, I don't like the word elderly, but that's what it is. I want to say over the age of 65, they're going to come live in the United States to be with their families and not to work. I thought that was an interesting statistic.
Yes. And it's not all that uncommon. During the Trump administration, we're not talking politics,
No.
I'm just saying, during the Trump administration, Melania Trump was already a U.S. citizen, and so while they were in the White House, she began the process of petitioning for her parents as a U.S. citizen, petitioning for her parents, right? And so I know there were some news reportings about them visiting the White House and all that stuff.
I remember that, yeah.
Originally as visitors, then as green card holders.
Green card.
Yeah, so this is very common, it happens all around us. So when an adult child who is already 21 years old or older, then the adult child is able to petition for the parents who are living abroad.
That's so nice that could happen, because I know my grandparents, they left their families.
Yes.
So we're talking the end of the 1880s going into the 1900s, okay? And nowadays you can at least be with your families.
Yes.
That unification of family is
That's right.
so important.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So another question that will lead up to this is if a family is originally from another country, and we talked about how if the child is already 21, is able to petition for the parents, but there's a missing gap here. So how would the child become a U.S. citizen? Right? So I know there are some families, if they were here and they happen to give birth to a child while the child, while the pregnancy is happening here in the U.S., as soon as somebody who's born in the U.S., that person acquires U.S. citizenship.
Right.
So that's one way. And so that could happen when people are visiting the U.S. or if they are sent here to work by their own companies or whatnot, and once they're stationed here, they happen to give birth to a child. So that's one way. The other is if a child were to study here in the U.S. I mean, here in the U.S., we have a lot of students from abroad. If a child were to study in the U.S. and later on happens to work for a U.S. company, the company is able to petition the child for his green card and then later on for citizenship as well.
Oh, okay, very interesting.
Yes, so it's not all that complex. The law, even though the law is complex, the law does offer a lot of different opportunities. So the key word is opportunity, and you and I both know, in order to network, we have to understand that network is working.
Yes.
Right, so you have to work the network.
You have to work the network, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my encouragement to these younger people who may in the future want to become U.S. citizens and help their parents come into the country is that you gotta network, you gotta know more people, you have to go and find the employers who are willing to help you go through the process, so then you can later on help the rest of the family.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I really know that's important is like the challenges that they have once they come into this country. I don't think those challenges have changed since when my grandparents came to now, because this is a country of many languages, okay? And you're always more comfortable when you're able to communicate.
Right.
Right. So there's a lot of challenges, which I'm going to get into a lot more of those challenges after our break.
Sure.
And we'll do that. Thank you. We're going to take a word from our sponsor, and this is WGSN-DB.
At Benefits for You Too Insurance Services, we believe knowledge is power when it comes to selecting the correct healthcare and Medicare insurance. Please contact us at healthcareoptions@benefitsforyou2.com or call us at 310-245-0332.
Welcome back to WGSN-DB, Going Solo. This is the Senior Citizens Forum. I'm Janice Wood, your host, and I'm here with Danny Chen, who's with Green Maple Law.
Yes.
Okay.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited, very happy to have you here today. Okay. And we're talking about immigration of people who are coming to the United States, because you only deal with people that are coming to the United
That's
States,
correct. Not going anywhere
not
else.
going the other way, okay?
Yes.
And, why they come, where we beginning to talk about challenges of being here in the United States, and then we're going to talk about the documents that you need, okay?
Yes, definitely.
And I know it's quite extensive.
It is. It's a long, drawn-out process.
Right.
And it requires quite a bit of planning as
Planning,
well.
okay.
Yes. So we always encourage people, when you have this urge, when you have the thought of, hey, one day I might want to come to the U.S. and live here, let's have that conversation early. Because typically, some type of move like this would require at least a year, maybe 2 years of petitioning with the government. And prior to petitioning, all the ducks need to be in a row, so to speak. So then there's quite a bit of planning. And it also depends on how they're going to come to the U.S. Is it through family, as we mentioned earlier before the break?
Right.
Is it through a younger child who's able to petition for them? Or is it through other means? So all of these things we're going to have to think about, discuss, and then plan out some roadmap for them, right? And then, what is the purpose of them wanting to come? Because for some, it may be because they want to be closer to family. For others, because there may be some hobbies or interests that they want to pursue. All different reasons. And because of these different reasons, there may be different ways for us to plan for people to come in more easily. Yes.
Right. So I think one of the reasons I would want to come immigrate or go to another country to live is to be with family.
Yes.
Especially the biggest thing that you could put in front of somebody who's older is grandchildren.
Yes.
Grandchildren, okay. It can be economic reasons you want to come to another country.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
But also, I would think that would lead in some challenges that you could have. So I think you've got to look at what the challenges are before you begin that roadmap
Definitely.
coming down.
So for family-based, because of children, grandchildren, when the child is already a U.S. citizen, then the child, when turning 21, is able to petition the parents. But sometimes the challenges that we come across may be that the U.S. citizen child, who's an adult now, but maybe the child is still in school, fairly young, not yet graduated. So then the child does not have the financial ability to petition for the parents. Now, why is that a concern? Because U.S. immigration requires that the petitioner is able to show proof that when he or she brings additional family members into the U.S., that these additional family members will not become public charge. What public charge means, basically, is that the government is going to have to take care of their well-being, right? So I know some politicians would make this a big issue, but I'm here and I want to reassure people that this can be solved fairly easily. So if there is a challenge, and that the challenge is the U.S. citizen is not able to prove financial ability to sponsor, the beneficiary, in this case, the parents who are coming into the
Okay.
U.S.
Well, this leads me to a question for you.
Sure.
Well, what if I've worked for how many years I worked in my home country, okay, and I have money,
Yes, this is what I'm leading to.
okay?
So if the U.S. citizen child is not yet able to petition because of financial inability in this case, the parents are able to step in and say to the U.S. government, it's okay. We don't need the U.S. citizen child to financially petition for us. We have the wherewithal. We have the savings. We have real estate abroad. We have whatever it is, right? So there are ways to get around this rule. And so I just want to make sure that all of our viewers and listeners know that with legal immigration, it is possible for people to come in, and we do not need to be concerned about issues of public charge, because the law requires either the petitioner or the beneficiary to already be self-sufficient. Yes.
Okay, because you're always hearing about people coming into the country who don't have money, and they're always like, the government is going to have to support. Now, like the other day, and I can't even remember who I was talking to, someone says, well, people come to this country because they don't want to work. Okay, and I'm like, okay, but I think they were talking more illegal immigration, which we're not going into at this point.
We're not going into that.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But most people that are coming here legally have to show some form of financial
ability.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So that's one of the challenges that we face. The other challenge is today the parents want to come. The child is in the U.S. The child may have a family here, grandchildren or grandchildren on the way.
Right. Yes.
Right. So the family wants to be here, but if the child, the adult child, is not yet a U.S. citizen, what do you do? Because only U.S. citizens are able to petition for their parents. Only U.S. citizens.
So they can be there. The sponsor, is that what I'm understanding? You have to have a sponsor in that petition.
Yes.
Okay.
And in this case, the sponsor needs to be a U.S. citizen child.
Okay.
Right. So it is possible to go from green card to becoming a U.S. citizen. So what is the difference between a green card and a U.S. citizen? Well, with a U.S. citizen, you're able to vote. You have the right to re-enter the country when you exit. as a green card, you're here really as a privilege. You can live here, but you're not yet able to vote. You're not yet a full-on citizen.
Okay, so your passport that you're due for all your traveling would be your home country's passport.
That's right. Yes.
Because I'm always hearing people from other countries saying they have to go to the embassy for their country to get a new passport.
That's right. Yeah. Whereas when you become a U.S. citizen, everything is done here in the U.S. because you are going to hold a U.S. passport. Now, the only way for a green card holder to become a U.S. citizen is to live in the U.S. for a sufficient amount of time. That's the only way you can do so. So for most people, it's a 5-year process from getting the green card all the way to becoming a U.S. citizen.
Okay.
Yeah, so time will be able to help us resolve this issue, but unfortunately, there's no shortcuts.
There's no shortcut. Yes.
Yes. So if parents want to come in to help the family take care of grandchildren, sometimes we got to do some math, right? Are you going to have your grandchild in time for the son or the daughter to become a U.S. citizen so then they can petition for their parents abroad?
That's very interesting.
Yes. So this is why we emphasize all the time on forward planning.
Now, I know, and this is interesting, now I'm talking about the opposite way. My son has moved to Brazil.
Yes.
Okay? And he married a Brazilian.
Yes.
And I guess they sponsored him. But there was a lot of paperwork. It took a couple years to get that done.
Yes.
Where he could only stay so many months at a time in Brazil.
Right, right.
And then he would come back to the United States, and then this going back and forth until he got that card that said that he could be there legally.
Yes. Yeah. So
it's the same thing come this way.
every country has their own immigration rules and requirements, but in principle, it follows the same or similar path, right? So let's say for your son, if their family wants to relocate back to the U.S., then he will have to go through a process for her, in that he's going to have to petition the U.S. government and say, hey, I'm a U.S. citizen, I've married somebody abroad, and now I want to bring them in. So that is also about 1.5 years to 2 years worth of process. But, you know, I'm very sure that it tracks very similarly to what your son had to go through.
Right. Well, she wanted to come back. I mean, he met her here in the United States.
Ah, I see.
Okay. She was here on a on a fellowship.
Okay.
But she wanted to go back to Brazil.
I see.
Okay. But vice versa, if they decided to move here, okay, because she happens to be an MD, and she wanted to come back here, would he have to have special paperwork for himself to come back into the United States?
Yes. So, in a nutshell, he's going to have to first prove to the government that they have a legitimate and bona fide relationship. So, the U.S. citizen and a foreigner married, right? So, marriage certificate, birth certificate,
Right.
all that. Second thing is he's going to have to prove that he has a financial ability, or she has a financial ability. Right. And the third is through a U.S. embassy over there, they have to go through an interview process. And this is also something that I want to emphasize. The government, the U.S. government, does a very, very good job of screening and vetting.
Okay.
Right? So when they do the interview, they're going to do an extensive background check.
Okay.
Just to make sure, the person coming into the U.S. is not going to pose any threats or national security concerns. And of course, she's
That's
not going to have
understandable, right. But going back to why somebody who would be over 65, so if her parents decided they wanted to come with them, which is where I'm leading to.
Yes.
Okay, this is all the roadmap that they would have to be using, which you said earlier.
Yes.
That they would have to do to come into the United States.
Yes. So, one step at a time, and this is all about planning. If in the future her parents also have the aspiration of coming and living here in the U.S., then first your son as a U.S. citizen will petition for his spouse.
Right.
And she will first get a green card. This is permanent residency to live in the U.S. And after the green card, she will then work towards getting her citizenship to become a U.S. citizen.
Right.
And then as a U.S. citizen, she will have the legal right to then petition for her parents. So then we're going to have to work backwards to count the years
Right.
and to see, whether all this planning is within their plans, and whether they're able to wait that amount of time to then come into the U.S. But all of this can be solved relatively easily if we start planning early.
Planning early.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense, because almost anything in life you should be planning for. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about on this show about planning for the future.
Yes,
For
definitely.
the unknown. Of course,
Oh,
I deal
yes.
with insurance, so that's the unknown is always
That's right. That's right.
right there. So again, I think it's really informative.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
I hope it helped.
Now to do those documentations we were talking about, and I want to go back to something a little bit more about coming into the United States, okay? You've come into the United States, and I used to work for a municipality, okay? And every country was represented that worked in that municipality.
Yeah.
And I would be dealing like, oh my God, I only speak English. I don't speak Tagalog. I don't speak Mandarin. I don't speak Hindu. I was just, everything that could possibly be there, I worked with.
Yes.
And it was very interesting to see how people grouped together with their own people, or then when we tried to mix, they would try to speak English.
Right. Right.
So same thing, this is a small example. So when I'm coming into the United States, I'm want to be with people who I can talk to.
Yes. Yes. And I think the U.S. has always been known as multicultural.
Yes.
It has always been known as a country that's welcoming of immigrants. I mean, just looking at the history of the country, right? It's built on immigration. So when we observe clients coming in, yes, they gravitate towards people and others of similar ethnic background,
Right.
because it's easier to ease into. However, we've also noticed that once they have settled, be it a year, 2 years, or maybe 5 years for some folks, they start to explore, because this is such a huge country, right? Where we are right now, LA County, Orange County, is definitely not representative of the entire country.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, there are great places in Montana, there's Omaha, Nebraska, all these different interesting places.
Well, even within California,
Oh yeah, definitely.
Southern California to the upper part of Northern California, different culture completely.
Right, right. And so the wonderful thing we see that our clients are doing, especially those who come here and want to enjoy life, right? They want to enjoy the things that they want to do, and they want to explore. Interesting story. We've had they're older. When they came, it was through their child who was a U.S. citizen to petition for them. So when they came, they were already in their early 70s. And then they decided, because the husband loved playing golf, they decided that they were going to learn, number one, how to drive themselves, because they were in a metropolitan before in Berlin. They had public transportation, they didn't need to drive as much. But when they came here, they learned how to drive the American way.
Or the California
Yeah,
way.
the California way.
Yeah.
And the second thing was they bought an RV. And they put all the things that they needed in their golf clubs, of course, and they drove across the country playing golf at all these different golf courses. That's what they enjoy doing. And they're becoming more and more American, as we say. Yeah, so wonderful stories like that.
Yeah, but each person's going to have their own personality
Yes.
and what they're going to do, because what I want to do and what you may want to do may be two different.
Yeah. And
Two
this
different
country is so vast, it has so many opportunities, it's got something for everyone.
Yeah, there's definitely something for everyone. It is definitely vast, from deserts to mountains to
Yeah.
the ocean. Of
Great place.
course, in California, we have it all.
Yes, we're so blessed.
Yes. Well, I'm a native Californian, so I was born in downtown Los Angeles. Not going to find many of us.
I can imagine. Yes.
And I can't get out of LA County. But so when my son did this major move, it was like, Okay.
Yes, yes. But
Yeah.
this is the world now, right? This is the modern world. People
This is the
move
modern
about.
world. Yeah.
Yep, quite often.
Yeah.
Yes. So one thing I do want to touch on
Good.
is you mentioned documentation.
Right.
Yes. So for documentation, each country has its own methods of proving things. And so the US government understands that, you know, a birth certificate that looks a certain way here in the US, you may not find the same at another country. They may use other ways of proving things. And, you know, whichever agency issued those things, you know, what it should look like and all that. So not to worry. The US government also does a very good job of telling everyone online on their own website when preparing for documentation where at the local agency should you go and get these documents and what they should look like, what color the paper should be on, all those minute details. They're all listed on the US government website.
I know when my son was doing his documentation, he was constantly going to downtown LA to get things with Apple style. Is that what that was called?
Yep.
They
That's right.
required the documents to be Apple style.
Yes, that's right, because that's the way for other governments to understand, to confirm the legitimacy of the
Right.
document. Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like you probably deal with a lot of people that are coming from China, but in this case, Brazil, they speak Portuguese. So
That's right.
So I guess does that help? Apple styling, does that help translate or?
It usually has the translation component to it. So then the viewer knows, whoever's receiving the document knows what the document is, what it reads. But it also legitimizes the document. Think of it as notarization. Yeah. Except this is done through a representative of that particular country. Right. So let's say if we want to get a birth certificate from Brazil to be legitimized here in the US for purpose of immigration, we definitely will need to go through their local customs and their local notarization in order for the US government to deem this to be, a legitimate document.
And because I know this has nothing to do about immigrating to the United States, but going out, my son's birth certificate wasn't correct. It didn't match his other documents. Because his father had changed the spelling of his middle name, and it didn't coincide with what everything I was doing, which was crazy. So we had two different spellings, so we had to go through all kinds of verification where I even had to pull out documentation saying who I was, and so did his father. It was crazy.
Yes.
And I'm going, I'm not moving to Brazil.
No, but in the legal sense, right?
Right.
Everything needs to match up. Yeah, so that's why devil's in the details. And so we keep emphasizing the earlier we plan, the earlier we're able to discover these issues, and the earlier we're able to perfect the documents.
Well, I know I used to work for government, and it doesn't take, things don't happen like that. It takes a long time for things to happen.
Yeah. That's right.
And to plan, because it's all planning.
It's all planning, yes.
Yeah.
So we encourage people who want to come here, not just as visitors, but to come here and live, to reside with family, or to pursue their interests, to really get in touch with knowledgeable professionals who are immigration experts and find out how.
But you don't always have to become a citizen.
Correct. You don't have to become a U.S. citizen. Some countries have rules in place where if you become a U.S. citizen, then you give up your original nationality. So some people do not want to do that.
Okay, well, there's such thing as dual citizenship.
Most countries in the world, including the U.S., recognize multiple nationalities.
Yes.
So everyone can be 007, everyone can be Jason Bourne, everyone can have a bunch of
Well,
passports.
we can go back to you then. Do you have multiple citizenships?
Yes.
One for Taiwan, Canada, and the
US.
United States.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Although, I don't have as interesting of a life as let's say, a James Bond.
James, well, you're not going to jump out of an airplane.
Darn it.
Darn, okay. I think that would be it's a James Bond or other thrilling things James Bond did. We won't go into that here. Okay. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Danny.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Because
definitely.
I know I like to do research on all of this. I know we can talk more and more detail. But if anybody would like to contact Danny at Green Maple in Newport Beach, California, Green Maple Law, we're going to have that information posted, and I'm sure he has a number if you want his help, if you're from Detroit or from Phoenix, or if somebody's watching this from Taipei, you'll have to do the translation.
Yeah, no problem. Be happy
Okay,
to.
all right. We'll have the information available to you, and I know Danny's staff, I know several members of Danny's staff, and they're all very anxious to help and friendly, and they'll be more than happy to help you out. And if you want to contact me, I can still connect you into to Danny here. Thank you, Danny. It's
Thank you
been
so
a lot
much.
of fun.
Yes,
Love
definitely.
doing this, and welcome back in the future.
Yes.
Okay. This is WGSN-DB going solo. Have a wonderful day. Bye.